What's up, guys? Today we are putting together a little video for you to give you an update on Ryan Tuerck. We had the great opportunity of putting together a motor for him, which I'm super humbled that he reached out to us to do this, and grateful he gave us the opportunity to build this 3S 5S combination motor for him. And it's going to be for a super cool vehicle that he has to announce and release, and I can't wait for everybody to realize what he's going to be drifting in. He actually just won the Formula Drift event they just had out in California, which I was talking to him about. I was like, man, I gotta really catch up on that because I really don't know too much about it, but it's super interesting, and how radical these guys can control these cars through a drift situation is pretty badass. So I definitely need to step up my game with all the drifting stuff that they're doing. It's crazy. The following's enormous, and it's just really cool to see them out there. And he's a Toyota guy. He really pushes all Toyota products, and he drives all the Toyota vehicles, and it's just cool to see him out there, you know, representing and kicking ass, and very well deserved, you know, very happy for him. So here's a motor that we're putting together for him. It was kind of a rush deal. He reached out to us back about the beginning of November, I want to say. He called me randomly and told me what he was trying to do, and I was like, man, you know, with the holidays and everything, we really tried to put this thing together as quick as we could. You know, sometimes it's hard finding blocks. Luckily, we had one. Cylinder heads, everything's just kind of tough to find these parts, especially when you're in a hurry. You know, if you're not in a hurry, you can pick and choose. If there's a block you certainly don't like, you can move on to another one. But I think this will work out for him. Really happy with how everything turned out. Nothing crazy what people would think maybe, you know, the setup would be. 5S block like we always do. Trying to keep things kind of simple. We got some custom pistons made for him by Trom. He actually contacted Barry over at Trom and made the pistons. I'll let him tell you guys when he puts a video together what spec they are. If that's up to him, if he wants to do all that. But again, 5S block, 3S crank. I will actually flip the motor around so you guys can see the crankshaft, so you guys will know exactly what's going on in here. So if anybody knows what a 3S crank looks like, you can see that there's a 3S crank in there. Not a 5S crank or a billet or anything crazy. Has Brian Crower rods with the custom-made 625 rod bolts. Got a pretty heavy-duty wrist pin in there because, you know, they beat on these things pretty hard. So, man, really curious to see how much power this thing's really gonna make. Let me flip this thing back over here real quick. So there you go, we're back over, and that way everybody can understand that it does have a 3S crank. I was able to convince him to go with one of our first gen style cylinder head setups. I think he's going to be pleasantly surprised when he realizes how much power this thing will make at a very low boost setting, with all the components that we normally run in our first gen style cylinder head. So he's running all the lifters that we make. Here's the custom age ARP 625 head studs. Again, these are all the lifters that we make. For the first gen, it's a 28mm lifter. So it's tricky to find a lifter that fits in this style cylinder head, but we got all that. We got all that pretty much covered already. Nothing cheap about these components, but they're made to handle the abuse. You know, we've run 10,500 RPM in our drag setup. So he doesn't plan on turning the motor that hard. And hopefully it lives and everything, you know, takes the abuse of the the constant high RPM, which I think it should, you know. Custom camshafts made from webcams for the application. We were in the process of shimming the head, which we got all that done. It's just a matter of getting the head on the block and torquing it all down, checking the lash one more time, and sending it on its way. It's actually leaving here on Sunday, and I can't wait to see once he drops it in. It's going to be a dry sump setup, so that was one of the things I told him we had to ultimately do. This was a front cover I basically put on the motor, and you can see I notched all this out, which where the factory oil pump used to go. So Not sure where he's going to hang the dry sump. Could be on the exhaust side, could be on the intake side. Normally we run them on the intake side. All depends where his header and all that stuff's going to work out and what kind of room he's got in space to make it all basically comfortable once you get it all together. So I have an oil pan coming from him that's coming from Moroso. They actually built a dry sump style pan, and from what he's told me, he's really just he's planning on pushing like mid 600s, so I think it should be more than and reliable at that kind of power level. I would show you guys the intake ports, but that's something that we kind of keep kind of secretive. That's up to him to show you guys again if he wants to, but again, our first gen style cylinder head all ported up, ready to go, valve job complete. Super excited to hear this thing fire up, man, and run. He's going to be running a Garrett style turbocharger on it, and I'm not sure what kind of fuel injection system, but ultimately it should be a pretty wicked setup. So I'm excited to see what this thing can do. So again, just to refresh some of you guys that have followed some of our prior videos, we basically use a shim on top or shim under setup, if you want to call it. So I know a lot of guys are used to running the shimless buckets. This particular setup, we have a shim set that goes with this retainer, and basically you lash, you choose your shim that goes inside of that little pocket with our lifter combination, and you basically get your lash where you want it. It's kind of tricky with this setup because you have to run a really tight lash since the bucket is so small in diameter, and the cam profiles are pretty aggressive. You got to keep the lash kind of tight so you get a nice clean ride from the ramp of the lobe to follow and make sure it doesn't hit, the side of the bucket or anything like that. So you got to keep kind of a tight clearance. So it's a little tricky when you lash the head. I did check it off, but I do like to check the lash once we torque the head back on, just to be sure nothing shifted or nothing moved around, because you're talking, 7-8 thousandths clearance, which once you torque on there could move or fluctuate a little bit. So we'll double check all that. But yeah, this is our shim combination that we use. Again, shim goes inside the retainer with the lifter that has a shim underneath, and it's a good setup. We've had a lot of good luck with it. In a perfect world, yeah, I'd love to eliminate the shim, but then it just gets too tricky to lash the whole setup. So you got to have some kind of flexibility to make all this work, and cams aren't as big. They're not too big. They got about 375 lift. Not too radical because I didn't want to stress the Valvetrain out that much. So we kept it kind of conservative, considering this head stock only comes with like I want to say like a 250 lift, if that. It's super small with how these engines were developed back in the days. I mean, these cylinder heads are old. So there was no real performance. The performance they had was basically, the kind of ports and all the way Toyota designed the intake and this whole cylinder head configuration just worked really well. So once you put some cams in it, man, it just wakes this thing up big time. So I think he'll be impressed. I think it's going to really produce a good amount of power, and again, we'll update you guys once he updates us and see once it's together, and we'll announce, once he does as well, what vehicle this is going in. And again, proud to be part of it. Thank you, Ryan, for allowing us to be part of the team to make this happen. And we're just super excited to see it all come together. So here is the final assembly of the motor. Ryan's motor getting ready. They're actually coming to pick it up today. And it's good to go. Got the pan presented on there. They still have to mount a dry sump pump on here and stuff, so there's a lot of work they have to do once they get it to where Ryan's at. But pretty much you could see it's all heads on, and it's ready to go. So they'll be here to pick it up within an hour, and then I can't wait to see what this thing is doing once they get it all mocked up into the vehicle it's going to be in. So stay tuned for updates on that, and we'll keep you guys posted. All right, take it easy. Bye.